Welcome, friends, new and true. My name is April Wyatt, and I'm your wellness advocate here at Living with Intention. And if you're new to this space, I appreciate you showing up here today, as my intention is to bring forward different approaches for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And this series, Co-Creating Community, it might seem a little out of place for wellness. And the reason why I'm bringing this forward is because we are humans and we need community. We need connection with others. So I want you to pause here just for a moment and think about how you feel when you're connected with a group of people that you really enjoy being with. Just pause here and just feel how that feels. It just kind of lightens you up or it warms your heart, right? Because when you are connected with others and you are in that safe space or that sanctuary, you feel safe and supported because they see and value who you are with no expectations to conform or to become like them, quote unquote, because they already accept you and your essence. And being in this environment also allows you to relax and receive more good vibes and become aware of how your essence is building and co-creating community together. And so for the past several years, I've had my finger on the pulse, so to speak, of healing, and I've seen a variety of supporting groups, mostly focused on women, which is wonderful as I've participated and found safety and support, because with that intention of coming together to connect and to support each other, we create that safe space, that sanctuary. And that allowed me to discover more about myself and witness others on their journey. And this brings me to our next co-creator, who is a new friend of mine, Eric Rosen. I invited Eric here today because he is a conscious co-creator, as he works with people from diverse backgrounds. And part of his specialty is how he supports men on their healing journey. And as you've maybe guessed by now, I'm not a man, or do I
Mhm.
identify as a man, but I'm also very curious to hear about Eric's knowledge and learn more about his approach and the impact it has had on co-creating community. And just from my own experience with Eric, as we've met, what sets him apart from other quote unquote coaches is his gentle presence that he holds and his way of genuinely really listening and caring about others and their well-being. A little background about Eric: he's an astrologer, a men's soul coach, breathwork facilitator, and a contributing author in the #1 best-selling book, Shift with Intention and Soar, a guide to manifesting your best life. Ooh, that sounds exciting, right?
Yeah.
And Eric's goal with his clients is to free them from emotional prison to pursue true desires. Well, without further ado, let's welcome Eric. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, April. Thanks so much for having me on today. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here and co-creating community with me.
Yeah, this is
That's what we
fantastic.
do. Yes. And for those who aren't familiar with you, can you just give us a little background about your journey and how you came to be where you are now?
Wow. Yeah,
I know
I'll
that's a
try to.
long story, maybe.
Yeah, I think I've over time learned to share this story in more of the condensed version for it to not be a run-on sentence. It lasts about 20 minutes, but Basically, April, I was a construction project manager. Everything was going fairly well. Life was on the railroad tracks, so to speak. Went to college, got my degree, got the profession, had the fiance. She got pregnant, so we birthed a really amazing, beautiful son. But then some clashing started happening and there were some issues, and so I became a single father, and so she's no longer in the picture in the life of my son. And so what it produced was not just this drastic life change, but sort of this soul searching moment where life felt like it went off the rails of like whoa, like this is kind of a crisis moment. This is a little catastrophic. I was experiencing a lot of just mental health stuff coming up. My body wasn't feeling good, and so as I was going about my journey of trying to, work this career occupation where I was like traveling a quarter of my year, being a single dad, trying to keep my fitness and health going in the gym and nutritionally, because my health was suffering, my first call to service was becoming a health coach, because I was like, I would not wish this upon my worst enemy, like how I was feeling. It just the symptoms of just fatigue and brain fog. And I was even experiencing parental shame because I felt like I couldn't be the present father that I wanted to be to my young son because of the lethargy that I was experiencing. And so over time, things gradually built upon one another. I added a personal training certificate because I was already doing that for myself. And so I started supporting individuals on that journey of more the physical thing. But then as I was helping others and also myself, I realized that there was still more to it than the physical side of it, right? Like I still needed to address this mental, spiritual, emotional side of it. So that I would say the first big thing that happened was going to Peru and doing what's called an ayahuasca ceremony, which is basically you go on this plant medicine and you have these psychedelic experiences. But it really cracked me wide open from a spiritual sense of things, of seeing a bigger picture of my life, and sort of this inner vision of what I wanted to create in my life with connection and community and public speaking and just all these different avenues. I was studying to be an astrologer at the time. So I started to bring these tools of more the metaphysical variety of astrology and intuition and breath work and hypnosis, and just was able to support clients on this deeper level beyond just the physical. Because I had clients coming to me and we would talk in between like the sets at the gym, and they would be sharing things going on in their life, and it was really clear
Mhm.
that there was still an inner dilemma going on, that it didn't matter how much they felt good about their biceps or took the gym selfies or ate all the great proteins and just all of it, that there was still something else that was blocking them from true inner fulfillment,
Mm.
happiness, connection, and relationships, their families, and things like that. So that's kind of the nutshell version of like how it morphed over time, and then got to see like, oh, okay, it seems like men in particular experience, distinct different issues, just as women experience their own. There's obviously commonalities, but I had to work through a lot of my own masculine challenges. And I felt like, I think the guys are almost ready for this. I think they're almost ready to, come out of the shadows to be like, yeah, hey, like I could use some support. Maybe I'm done with like pretending like things are okay, or like the lone wolf syndrome, if you've heard that
Mm.
term, like sort of like hiding from, people. And so, yeah, that's how it's evolved over time.
Yes, that sounds like quite the journey, and it it's so important that as we are learning new things for ourselves, whether you are a health coach or a Reiki master or whatever that is, or you're just somebody who's seeking, looking for different modalities, whatever resonates with you, and having that healing experience. And I'm not saying, well, I haven't done a ayahuasca, so I've heard a lot about how that's just like, whoa, right? It just really
Right.
puts things out there. Although a person who hasn't had that, it's more about being willing to go inward, and I call it navigating your internal landscape. That's the working from the inside out. So I really enjoyed hearing your story. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that with us, and how you recognize that the shame that you felt that you weren't able to you felt that you weren't able to support your son the way you should, and
Mhm.
anytime should is used, and I invite everybody to do this, re replace that with shame. So should, when we tell ourselves, oh, I should do this, I should do that, we're really kind of shaming ourselves in what we believe should be the right way. And there's no wrong or right way. It's just how we are moving through life and being open to the experience, just as you've shared, the health and transforming into the coach, the astrologer, the
Mm.
breath work, all the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad that you touched on that too, because by no means was this metamorphosis like, oh, okay, like I made it. Like I have no more healing to do. I have no more shame. I'm on the cloud. I'm up in the mountain. Like it was far from it. In fact, if anything, it uncovered deeper and deeper levels of shame because of where I thought I was supposed to be in life or in business or in relationships. Like there was still work to do. I still
Hmm.
experienced challenges. I still experienced financial challenges, relationship, business, health, like things still would come up in waves, but it was always an opportunity for me to drop into more love, acceptance, compassion for that journey of uncovering what was already part of my earlier life experience with shame, to experience that. And so really anything I was experiencing in my life that wasn't looking the way that I wanted to is actually a blessing in disguise. Those
Hmm.
triggers, those challenges to go within to gain this greater sense of wholeness in myself, to let go of that shame, because shame is such a low frequency, and I've
Oh,
dealt
yeah.
with it very much in my life. Like I used to, well, I still mention it sometimes, but that a lot of my childhood, adolescent experience felt like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, and I've experienced that at times in my adult life too. Just that low, just like unhappy vibrations. It's not fun. So
Mm, yes. And from I follow Abraham Hicks. I won't go into exactly who that is. And Abraham says that contrast and that lower vibration, that heaviness, the shame or what have you, is actually, I say, inviting uh, to, you know, kind of learn from it and choose, shift it just a little bit to where obviously uh, you had a shift, right? And move from that shaming and that uncertainty to more of, okay, this is what I can do for myself. And that's from my own experiences. Um, so whenever anybody is experiencing those kind of valleys or canyons in your internal landscape, knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, even though it might seem distant, you can still see it. And it's all about just one day at a time, moving forward. Yeah. And so I'm curious, uh, Eric, about the co-creating community. Just again, when you shared about being at the gym and starting to work out and then having that interaction with other people, I don't think people realize that you can create community wherever you go.
Mhm.
right? It doesn't have to be a big congregation. I think most people might think of maybe church groups, which are great. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that most people think, oh, a congregation, a community get together, um, PTA meetings. That's creating community. There's different ways to create community. So as you experience that, and knowing and hearing, as you said, that yeah, men need this, and that you get a sense that they're ready for this now. How did that transpire? How did you start co-creating community with men's groups, or working in individuals and then shifting it to that? How did that work out?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in building sustainable relationships, like over like the long term, to and not for things to just be like quick transactional, like, oh hey, like I've never met you, show up to my men's group or something like that. So I just would connect with certain guys over a period of time that I had met over different periods of my life. And so it sort of just started with this sphere of influence, I guess you could call it, of, oh, I met this guy this year at this thing, or oh, I know this guy from this other men's group that I participated in, or I know this guy just from social media or from college. And so just keeping those genuine empathetic connections about like checking in and seeing how they're doing and things like that
Mhm.
has allowed me the opportunity to start to both online and in person be like, oh hey, let's maybe all come together, right?
Mhm.
So I was already creating a sense of one-on-one community just with those connections, but now looking at broadening it out a little bit more so that that feeling of brotherhood, that feeling of support can be there. I think there's what I've noticed, April, is that some guys, when they start to go through transformation, so they start to go through changes in their adult life, and they start to kind of veer off the common path of maybe their family or their friendships, and they maybe want to be
Mm.
more of an explorer, of just things that are a little bit more maybe outside the box of the norm. They sometimes feel lonely. They don't have a lot of those common connections. They feel like they can open up and talk about the things that they're interested in their family and friendships. If they're lucky, they have some people there. But in general, it's becomes this thing of like, oh, I'm interested in XYZ now. Maybe it used to be, sports or going to the bar. Not that those things are bad, it's just that over time, sometimes priorities, value systems just change. And so to be able to offer that, is
Mm.
like, okay, here's a place where it doesn't matter what your personal values are, your beliefs are, if it just resonates, just to come to a place of sharing about your journey and talking and feeling supported in a non-judgmental space. That's really what it comes down to.
So would you say that that would be your definition of community then?
Yeah, I would, to me, like community, if I had to define it, would come down more to working towards a common purpose, a support system that's working towards a common purpose that's not just good for one particular person, but it's good for everybody. It's good for any any resources that are exchanged, that sort of thing. So like I participated in a community meetup of a mix of mostly women, but also some men too. And it was a potluck, so it's like we all bring our resources and share our resources of just food. But then we did a group meditation that was
Mhm.
meant to benefit the whole group and also just send good vibes out to the world and what it's going through, but also to have a personal journey with it too. So I look at it as like what's good for everybody, but also good for the whole, and like a coming together, a meeting of minds for that
Yes.
common good. Yeah.
Oh, that's so needed. And it seems like we all come together with food. food is
Sure.
nourishing to the soul, it's nourishing to our bodies, it's a way of connection. I think ancestrally too, right? This is how we built community. Everybody brought whatever it was that they caught or they foraged, and just having a meal together. And yeah, that's and having the resources. Yeah, having resources and learning, right? Learning from each other. Mhm.
Absolutely. That's such a great point that I didn't even consider, because there's tremendous resource value in just sharing knowledge, sharing gained wisdom, experience, the value of not just the personal storytelling, but also like you just did here today, referencing Abraham Hicks, like bringing that information to the table too, of just that knowledge.
And so community is, again, as we talked about before, it can look like anything. It can people at the gym, such as you shared, Eric, people at church, but it doesn't have to stay in that context. That's what I love about it. It doesn't have to stay in that like container, that specific location.
Mhm.
Uh, Community for me is actually like, I'm in Galveston, Texas right now. And Eric, where are you at?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri.
So I'm able to build community through this platform. Uh, yes, it's lovely to get together in person, although you can still feel the vibes, you can still feel that connection. It's really our intention of what we're holding as we're going into the community. So I like to remind everybody to have an open mind, right, with curiosity of, oh, how could this possibly support me? What am I going to learn from Eric? Or what am I going to learn from this other person over here? Because it seems like we're just boxed in with our own opinions, our own judgments about life. And because we have our own insecurities of how we're not doing life, all the shoulding, the shaming, then that keeps us boxed in. And then we compare our beliefs, which I've shared in the past. You're going to love this, is BS. Your belief system is BS
Mhm.
anyway. And then we project that on other people. It's like, oh, they're not doing what I expect life to look like. So then that's wrong. Or that person's doing what I want or what I think is the ideal, and I'm not there. So then that's the shame. So, yeah, people just holding that judgment of on themselves. And so, in order to let that go, it's just that curiosity. Oh, I wonder where that person grew up, or I wonder how they came to that decision, or I wonder what my interaction with this person will, as my essence. I talk about that in the past podcasts about remembering your essence, remembering we have this light. And when we connect with other people, it lights up even more. So
Yeah.
just being curious and open, so that way we're not looking through this little keyhole, basically. Uh, that's my impression of being able to open up to create more community
Yeah.
within ourselves and outward for others too.
I love that. I love that. I'm a very visual person, and so I was having this vision of when you can create that sense of empathy, that sense of curiosity about someone's background, or where they come from, or how they're feeling, and just essentially what a lot of people in spiritual community use that term loosely, like refer to as holding space, just really truly generating a space of non-judgment. I feel like that is so energetically inviting to for people to want to participate in, because I think we all just genuinely want to be heard and accepted. And
Mm,
so that's what I love about, or it seems to me like looking at the astrology, that how communities moving towards is that sense of, it doesn't have to be based on like the same common belief system or religion. Again, not that those things are negative, but that it's a little bit more inclusive, and that as long
Mm,
as there's a sense of like what's good for the group. I feel like when people can come together in that non-judgment free zone and just a sense of curiosity and empathy, it just seems like it creates an energy that's so inviting that you want to come back to that, and that more people that sense it or see it or hear about it want to come to that. Like, I want to be at that thing. Like, I want to be accepted and heard. I don't want to be judged over here for my beliefs or my background of what I've been through or how I feel about life or where things are at. To me, that's a really beautiful thing, is being able to come together in that space. And as long as, there could be different beliefs or different values, but as long as there's a sense of it's for the greater good of the whole community of whoever's coming together or the world in general, that it's not hurting anybody, or no one's, uh, doing like a selfish deed that's maybe hurting the other parties, then it's like, to me, that's a really beautiful essence of community.
mm, yes, indeed. And we need a diversity. We need different people. We need people from other backgrounds and cultures, and because everybody has their own essence. So that's that stone soup of collective consciousness I talk about, that we all contribute our essence into the pot. So we need some salty people, we need some spicy people, a little bit of
Yeah,
pepper, that's
right.
okay. We don't have to change them, and they don't aren't changing us. We're just witnessing and valuing them for who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe there's a divine spark in all of us, and so being able to witness someone in their divine spark can also like keep the flame going or reignite the spark in us too, right?
Yes.
Sources of inspiration, like the just people being on their path, or just their passion of being themselves and doing what they love. And even if they're not there, that's okay too. Having that those polarities where we support each other, we lift each other up.
Hmm. Yes, there's everybody's where they need to be. And
Yes.
by us holding our own vibration, our own essence, then that allows other people to witness that part of themselves, because I say we're all mirrors of each other.
Mhm.
And that something that I find interesting with you, Eric, or someone else, it's like, oh, it's kind of like a remembrance for me. Like, oh yes, I too carry that. And so that's me remembering, that's me reconnecting to that part of me.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like a big part of people finding their tribe, their community, to find the right vibe that they fit into, is still knowing there's a personal journey, of course, behind all of this, but then seeing that the mirroring can be positive or negative, that the projection can be, oh, I don't like that person, they're X, Y, and Z, they're triggering me. Or the golden shadow projection of like, oh my God, that person's so amazing, they have all these qualities. And it's like seeing that it's this mix of the shadow, the light, the golden shadow, the negative shadow projections, and that mirroring is occurring, and using that as an opportunity for personal growth has been one of my greatest tools and assets. Like, so I think sometimes people think, yeah, maybe I got to do the ayahuasca, or learn tarot, or learn to meditate, or do all this. It's like the growth really happens on the battlefield of like, how do you handle your stuff whenever you're triggered for positive or negative? And
Mm,
can you see that mirroring and go, what is it that's triggering me either positive or negative. Either I really like this person or I don't, and then going deeper to the roots of that, down the rabbit hole, to be like, what's going on here? Like, what emotional trigger is this trying to show me a lesson, trying to show me an aspect of myself to bring to the surface, to look at, to study, and hopefully, I would suggest loving with a lot of unconditional love, a lot of compassion, in order to alchemize, to turn lead
Mm,
into gold, of like that energy into something that they do want. Whether it's like, oh wait, I do have that quality in me, I am powerful, I can be that person. Or, oh wow, I do see where I was like that person, and how
mm,
to forgive that aspect and love on it.
yes. Yeah, that is so needed.
Yeah,
And um, by just you saying that, you know, finding that forgiveness, finding that way to, and really the forgiveness is for ourselves. And so I have a question about that for you, Eric. Is
sure.
that easy? Was that easy for you to do
uh in terms of just general forgiveness to others.
for yourself and like this journey that you just talked about as it unfolded? And I mean, in the
Sure, sure.
beginning, in the beginning, was it easy for you?
Yeah, definitely not. I might be an interesting case, because I tend to sometimes experience a little bit of like martyring for other people's experiences, and maybe taking on too much of the responsibility, or at times like too much like of the guilt and shame, like, oh, I'm responsible for that, or oh, I caused this person pain. And so it was sort of easy for me to maybe forgive them, and see them and accept them, you know, as they were, but then to have difficulty with the self forgiveness aspect of going, well, number one, maybe I did contribute to this person's pain, but ultimately we have to take responsibility for our own experiences. Otherwise, we'll always be the blame, the finger pointing, and that's just chaos. It's just constant conflict. And so to unravel that piece and then go, okay, like, where do I need to forgive myself for my contribution to the experience? Also, so that I'm not magnetizing the shame, the guilt of
Mhm.
also their experience, and taking it on, and just like eating more shame, basically. So that's been my
Mm,
experience. And so that's um what I've noticed, it maybe just from the masculine perspective, is that tends to be the guy who is a good guy, strong set of values, you know, has a big heart, but maybe just doesn't know how to deal with loss, disappointment, heartbreak, and having those tools of dealing with that grief.
yeah,
Such
that's
a non-linear process too, by the way. Like
yeah,
time heals all wounds, and
spirals.
it's like, who said that? Because you know,
They were in
that's
denial. They were disassociating.
they were disassociating. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. But
maybe
it's
some people, they say, "Oh, I'm much better now. I've moved past that." And that's great. I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way. Just bringing that up about how people process differently. And being that said, I would love to hear more about how you work and build community still with astrology. And I think you'd mentioned when we talked separately about nutrition and astrology, like just kind of a well-rounded approach to support
oh yeah,
others in
yeah,
their healing.
absolutely. Yeah. So traditionally, on just the individual basis, with actually doing an astrology reading for someone, like they come and they're like, they want to know something about themselves, or a challenge in life, or just maybe some
And is this
future
virtual or
forecasting.
in person or both? Do you do
Yeah,
both?
this is mostly been virtual, although I do in person too. Like at the end of this month, I'm gonna drive about 4 hours to Kansas City. There's a metaphysical fair that's really popular in town, and so for that whole weekend, the 31st of this month, and then the first and the second, I'll be there doing astrology readings, so people can come to this fair. So that's kind of a great community oriented thing too. Is like you come here, you can buy, your crystals, you can get readings from readers, that sort of thing. But in general, it's taken the form of online, and so it's looking at a person's chart, just helping them navigate whatever thing that they're wanting to get out of the reading. You mentioned the health component of it. I've learned how to look at a chart to see where there's specific things in someone's chart to be like, oh, okay, like here's maybe some suggestions on unique dietary suggestions or forms of fitness. Because a lot of times people, I think, when it comes to health and wellness, they're maybe using the analytics of the mind to maybe choose like hopefully not like, so there's a lot of fad diets and workout programs, but maybe just choosing like a blueprint or like a cookie cutter program and then trying it out, having to experience it, but then being able to look at someone's chart and be like, oh, like, hey, do you like doing this? Like there was this one woman, it was like, I was looking at her chart and I paused for a moment and I was like, do you like hiking? And she's like, oh my God, I love hiking, but I never go. I never do it. She wasn't giving herself permission. She thought that she needed to
Ah,
be doing going to the gym for fitness, but I was able to show her in her chart how on a mind, body, soul level, how
mm,
hiking would help her, not just her healing journey, but mental clarity, just the moving the body, getting to different environments, like
mm,
foreign trails, like not going to the same trail all the time. And so that's in her unique blueprint of her astrology chart of being able to like look at that for that individual person. So
mm.
being able to, you know, help them go in that direction. And then, of course, them doing that for themselves, tailoring that for themselves. Like, say she went off on a hike alone, but then when she would come home to her family or her kids or her cohorts at work, there's she's feeling a renewed sense of her spirit. So and then the newer thing that's in development, I've got at least one plan. I'm toying with a few others called an astrology gallery, which this has
Mm.
been done before, but this is where an actual group of people do gather and volunteers. I will pull up their astrology chart and I will actually sort of teach a little bit of astrology to the group by showing this person's chart, but also like giving them sort of like a mini astrology reading too.
Mhm.
So that's a really great way to sort of build connection, community with people of they're coming together for an interest, of course, in learning more about themselves, but then also for the
Yes.
group, they're getting to learn about astrology too. So again, it can be this thing of where that has an effect, that butterfly effect of how that impacts them.
Yes. And also it's more empowering, right? I can just speak for myself as I'm discovering more about myself and unlearning the
Yeah.
BS, the mind telling me certain things, and it's just like, does that even really relate right now? And then just being open and curious, and that's really empowering, learning more about ourselves, learning how we're here and connecting with others and mostly ourselves first, because we are the ripple effect, right? When we feel good, when we feel better, just as the health and nutrition, like you had said, I really enjoyed hearing that about, you were like, do you like hiking? People are in that box, right? I have to go to the gym. I got to do this and that. And that's not
Yeah.
fun. That
No.
takes the fun out of it. It sucks everything out of us when we
Yeah.
think about health and fitness in those certain ways, that really don't
Yeah.
support us in our mental
I
health.
yeah, I a lot of my challenges with my health and fitness journey was being like, I have to eat X amount of protein a day. I have to hit this type of workout regimen. It wasn't until I started developing an intuitive approach to like, what does my body need?
Mhm.
And getting out of the paradigm of just the physical of like how my body looked, even, and just going like, what does my body need? Maybe it is a different form of workout. Maybe I'll be honest, like sometimes my inner child is like, I want a cookie, and if you don't give me a cookie, I'm gonna be pissed. And then going, well, it's been weeks since I've had sugar, so I'll eat a cookie. I'm not sublimating my emotions or anything like that. I was just like, oh, okay, like that was what was congruent, but it allowed me to show people too how to like really when they do come to the gym, when I did do personal training, like how to like really connect in the body, to connect to the
Mhm.
awareness in the body, to really get that mind muscle connection in the body. And I felt that was something for me that's helped me like moving forward in life too, because it is paying attention to the awareness in the body of like, okay, what's up? What's going on here? Like, what do I need? Do I
Mhm.
sometimes it's with healing, it's even needing to scream and yell into a pillow and like let some anger out so that you don't go to the next community gathering and be like, that person looked at me funny, and projected it onto them.
Yes. Yeah, we don't realize that we are contagious. Our energy is contagious, and it's either, it's positive or higher or lower vibrations, let's put it that way. And you can
Yeah,
feel it when somebody walks in the room and they're open and they're bright, and people just gravitate towards them, or they turn and look and it's more of that, oh, who's that? I want to get to know that person. Uh, and
absolutely.
then the complete opposite, right? When somebody comes in and they're rushed or they're angry, upset, it just kind of creates that space. People are so sure about interacting with that person. So being responsible about our own energies, and I
Oh
like
yeah.
hearing that about, screaming into a pillow, or,
Yeah.
letting that go before
Yeah.
you walk into that space.
So
Uh,
important. And I think especially too, what comes to mind is parents too, like families, to that responsibility of their energy and how to take care of the overall health too emotionally, because through the role modeling, through epigenetics, through the
mm,
environmental experience that's being created for their children, like that is way more important than the parent trying to like teach, guide, instruct the child on like good decisions or what to do in life. There's a component to that, but I feel it's more important that uh, kids are pretty bright. They're intuitive. They pick up on things, right? So it's like the parent actually can serve themselves really well in the family unit, and then any broadening outside that community sense of friendships, workplace, that sort of thing, by learning to manage that vibration. And I actually hear that a lot more HR departments in some cultures are starting to take this a little bit more sincerely, of giving people that opportunity to, in some way, like connect to themselves, or a chance to express frustrations either about the workplace or whatever it is.
mhm. Yeah. And going back to what you just said about family unit, which is community, and being mindful of our own reactions or responses. And so you shared your story, Eric, about being a single parent now. How have you noticed that shift with your own son as you've
Yeah,
worked through this?
yeah, absolutely. It's so potent. I mean, it is so powerful. I come from a long line of what I would call the father wound in my family, of like this sort of negative, toxic, um, shame, guilt projections from the the father to the son. And so it's been this relationship that cycle in my family tree has started to break down with my son. And so it's like, for me, the more that I manage my vibration, and not making it wrong too, the easier it is to connect with him, the easier it is to play with him, the easier it is to engage with him. Because if I am in a vibration of like a lack vibration, I'm seeing like just the negative, or I'm not feeling well, that if he comes to me and he's like, hey dad, you want to like go do this, you want to go shoot basketball, it's like there's a few things that might happen. If I'm in that vibe, I might either say no, I don't feel like it because of the
Mm,
vibe that I'm in, or I might say yes, but maybe go into it more from a place of like obligation, instead of like really being fully engaged in
mm,
that quality interaction with him. Whereas like if I'm catching myself like, oh, like I'm in a negative space right now, like what do I need not to make this go away, because that's typically not the answer, but more to lean into like,
mm,
whoa, okay, like what's coming up here, what needs to be loved, so that sense of unconditional love that I think most parents strive for, or with their kids, of like loving them no matter what, like doing that for ourselves as parents, like with whatever
mm.
we're experiencing. And then so then we open up more gradually to that role modeling of that unconditional love to the child, like we're doing what we already want to have for them, so it's easier to give it to them, but we're also
Mm.
showcasing it to them. They feel that. So my son very much appreciates that, and he's really quick to pick up on those vibes too. So
Yes, it's so important. And would you say that, as you said, n- not feeling obligated to go play basketball, but maybe even sharing your vulnerability of what you're experiencing in that moment with him?
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Because it's been a really interesting experience, because on the common school of thought would be like, oh, you're the parent, you have to maintain a certain status, or like the power position, or something like that.
Mm,
But realizing that he's a human being too, he's just growing, that he's still a human, like I don't own him, like he's a human,
mm,
own free will experience just like me, and I'm just meant to be a steward of that experience, to let him have the freedom in how he chooses to live his life. Obviously there's certain boundaries, like it's not going to let him go out at 3 o'clock in the morning or something. He's barely a teenager, but um, that that's really helped me to share that with him, because my sincere hope is that even though there are those challenges of the stuff around how he can be as a boy around his peers or other people, that at least that I've showed that to him, where even if he thinks, oh, I don't know, that's like kind of weird, dad, you're kind of different from the other dads, or you're kind of different in this way, that even if it takes him some time, like it'll click, like, oh wait, like maybe he could be 26 years old down the road and running into some stuff, and then realizing like, oh, like what was it that my dad did in these situations, or that sort of thing.
yes.
You never know. So
Yeah, we're planting seeds, right?
yeah,
Through
yeah,
our connections. So whether it is um, our children, or just interactions at work, or people that we meet in the store, or what have you. It's really being mindful of how we're carrying our energy. And yeah, some days we're not going to be rainbows and unicorns, and
sure,
we might be a little deeper down into those valleys. Uh, but just, I believe, us accepting those parts of ourselves. And you
yeah,
alluded to that too, Eric,
yeah, 100%.
accepting that.
Yeah,
And then,
no, because I was going to say, because I feel that it's only when we make those experiences wrong, right? Like to go back to the should and the shame piece, that's when the vibe becomes a monster that's like harmful to us or the person. It's because we're fighting it, we're resisting it. And so what we resist persists. But it's like the person's having a day where they don't feel like sunshine and rainbows, but they can just accept that and sit with that alchemy of that and love themselves anyway. Like I've been around people where they're going through it. It's actually a really beautiful experience because then they're in a state of where I can be like, hey, do you want me to support you? Do you want me to hold space for you? And that's a beautiful thing, right?
Mm,
But if someone is battling with their inner demons and making their moods wrong or their life circumstances wrong or money wrong or relationship or any of that, that's the catastrophe. And then it bleeds out, it projects onto the relationships too. And that's a person that it's hard to help because at a fundamental level there's some victimization going on, right?
yeah.
There's the I'm a victim, this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening, I shouldn't feel this way. But we're humans, we're really emotional creatures. So
Yes, and then that brings up a question, Eric. I really like that you said that because
yeah.
what would you say or what guidance would you give to those who um, if they don't even realize they're in a victim mode?
Mm,
You know, they haven't they don't want to look in the mirror. It's like they see the mirror over here and it's like, no, I'm not looking. It's still
yeah,
that reason
yeah,
why,
yeah.
they don't want to look over here. So what what guidance do you have for our listeners here about being able to work with that? What
Yeah,
words of wisdom do you have to share?
I think just a really I was gonna say fun, but that's probably not the word. It's fun for me to share it, but just the fundamental easy mental perspective flip, which is to go from seeing that the narrative is why is that happening out there, or why is it affecting me, or why is this happening to me, to going like, what is this here to teach me?
Mm,
What am I learning right now? Like flipping it from the why me to like the okay, like what's going on here? You know, like even just the easiest, most fundamental stuff. Like it could be in the last apartment that I lived in, the dishwasher stopped working. And I'm like, oh crap, now I got to hand wash these dishes. Why me? But then it's like, well, wait a second, you know, and this maybe this isn't the best example because it gets into some of the spiritual, but I know feng shui, and so it's like, oh, this area of the home is actually deals with people, so it was a way to go,
oh,
oh, this is in the area of people, like what challenges am I having connecting with people right now, connecting with community. It could be, oh, I accidentally bumped into that car behind me backing up parallel parking and kissed the license plate. Where am I getting a little kiss, a little warning not to be looking into the past about something because the
hmm,
things behind us in the car of the past. So it's like when we start to see like that there's symbolism behind things and we start to go, you know, what's the lesson here, and sort of broaden our perspective to a little bit of this, I would call it like a quantum shift, to not just like the linear X happened, so then Y happened. You know,
hmm,
just like the linear cause and effect thinking and seeing the bigger picture. I think that's a really powerful way to get out of the victimhood, because then you're taking responsibility for what is this seemingly external event that I'm wrapped up in that I don't feel good about, actually a creation of my own reality that's just mirroring back my own internal state, and to shift the internal state, to take the power back. And there's empowerment in that.
yes. Yes, that is very powerful. It
Yeah.
is. And at the
Yeah.
time, it can be very scary. It can be, uh, you can't see. It's like in a murky waters or something. You know that there's
Sure.
something below the surface, right? But you can't
Yeah.
see until you have that experience. And it's like, oh, okay, I made it through. I'm alive. Even
Yeah.
though our minds tell us this isn't good, this isn't, whatever, because that's
Oh,
the
for
ego,
sure.
right? It wants to live in the past. It wants to bring that up to validate why you're feeling the way you are. And when we are more open and curious to move through that, then we can expand. That's what expansion is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you mentioned expansion. It's such a powerful word. And of course it can be difficult to wrestle, especially with like, I use like examples that were kind of minor inconveniences, but still things that tick us off. But it's like, talk about like if it's, there was a guy I knew who he didn't have renter's insurance and the strip mall of his office caught on fire.
Mm.
And so he had to go out and buy all new furniture and things like that. Some people are experiencing getting sick or knowing a loved one's getting sick or even people passing away, so it's
Mhm.
like to have to take that next level of like, okay, like what is this showing me,
Mm,
like when I got actually sick with COVID, like when it first started, it was actually for me personally, and maybe this is triggering for people, but it was actually a really beautiful experience because I intuitively knew that I was moving too fast in life. And I even got
mm,
that warning, like, if I don't slow down, this might happen. And then I didn't slow down because I didn't know how. And then it happened. And so it forced me to slow down. And I had a lot of awarenesses, a deeper understanding about myself of like, oh, I am meant to be that guy who is a lot more vulnerable and shares a lot more of the wisdom like through his own emotional experience and is okay with that. But
mm,
I wouldn't, so I got the the benefit of that experience instead of like, oh man, like why did I get COVID? This sucks. Like I'm missing client sessions or I can't participate in this business partnership, that sort of thing. So
mhm. Yes, and just you saying that you accepted that part of yourself of being more as I described you in the beginning, what I enjoy about you is that you listen authentically, you have that authenticity and that you have that gentle presence. So it creates that safe container for people to connect with you easier. So that's
thank
our
you.
biggest strength is our biggest weakness too. So it's how are we seeing that for ourselves? Is it,
Right,
oh, this is a
right,
weakness, or am I seeing it as a strength? But being aware of possibly um, things that can come of that. So,
right, right. The hero, the concept of the hero's journey, it's like a thing that Joseph Campbell created, and it's something you'll see play out in a lot of like action and adventure movies of
mm,
like Star Wars or The Matrix, where we go through these things where something happens and we get called away from the ordinary world or a day-to-day schedule, and we have to go into this sort of crisis challenge moment, pulled out of our comfort zone and go into this abyss of going into the depths of whatever the challenge is and sort of seeing it. Like for Luke Skywalker, it was like, oh my God, my dad's like the worst person in the universe. It's Darth Vader, but then he comes back to this resurrection sort of moment, like with the wisdom of like that experience and like facing off with his father. And his father, Darth Vader, has his own of like that moment where he actually saves his son from dying before.
mm,
And so we can apply this same concept to this idea that typically, like like mentioned, like the weakness and the strength piece, that I find that oftentimes the hero's journey looks like there's a component of us that's definitely how do I put this? It's part of our core essence, part of our innocence, like earlier on in life. It's actually a strength. It's what makes us us, just the beauty that we are. But then at
mhm,
some point it gets tarnished, For me, it was like however I was, and then I got bullied, and then I was getting bullied at home. And so I learned to suppress those sides
mm,
of myself. And so then the hero's journey is going into the pain, the abyss of those experiences, and being like, nope, we're going to heal this and actually bring this back, that actually it was okay to be a sensitive, empathetic boy growing up, and there was nothing wrong with it. And so going in and seeing what seemed like a weakness or made me different, and healing those experiences where I had to shoo that away just to get along and survive in life, that now it's like coming back to a place of like, oh, because I'm bringing this back, now it can become that strength again of actually
Mm,
being empathic, being sensitive, being able to help serve and hold space for others.
yes.
That was a
Thank you.
mouthful.
Yes, and so needed, Eric. And
Yeah,
I think for everyone, regardless of gender, or sex, it's people recognizing those aspects of themselves and knowing it's
absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. For women, like it might be, oh, women have to behave this way. They have to be perfect. They have to look a certain way in their bodies. They can't speak up. They don't want to make too much noise, right? It's there's all types of stuff on either side, regardless of gender, for sure.
Mhm. Great. Well, I so enjoyed our conversation here today. And before we go, is there anything else, any other um, supports that you offer for your clients that we didn't cover today?
Yeah, I'm working on a few different things, specifically for the fellas, for the guys. They're still in the development stage. I haven't published them or launched them yet. So if people want to follow me at Viking Rising Men's Coaching is the Facebook page. It's also the IG page. That's a good place to keep up on the social media side of things that I'm doing there. But those are really the main things that I'm working on, just in terms of things that we didn't mention here today. There's some local stuff that I do here in St. Louis, but again, a lot of that will be put out there on social media. So that's really the best place to keep up with it. Um, if anyone's like super curious and wants to go deeper into astrology, I did finish my online astrology school. So that's something that
Oh,
people can,
fun.
yeah, people can find that at my astrology website, which is astrologybyericrosen.com. That's astrology by and then ERICROSEN.com.
Hey, great. Great ways to connect with you. Wonderful.
Yeah,
And are you going to be journeying up in the Midwest, like to Des Moines in the near future?
I am actually. It's so funny. I it came to me after the fact that I mentioned the astrology gallery. Like the way that you and I actually first got connected was through a gentleman that invited me to Des Moines, Iowa for an astrology gallery. And I'll be honest, I don't remember the exact dates. And so I'll, of course, make sure to publish that on my social media, especially as it gets closer. But I believe it's the end of June, maybe
Perfect.
June 23rd, 25th, something like that. So, yeah.
That'll be great. And it's just nice that you're creating community wherever you go. So,
Yeah, it's always
yeah,
been an ambition of mine to want to travel a little bit and connect into other communities around, especially the Midwest and maybe even further too. So I'm happy that I'm getting to do more of that.
wonderful. Well, again, thank you, Eric, for being here. I so enjoyed our conversation and sharing about how you are co-creating community for, on all aspects, really. And it's just been a pleasure to have you here today. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, April. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone appreciates and gets a lot of great benefits and goes out there and creates really amazing connections in themselves and community.
Yes. And that's so perfectly said. It starts with us. We are the
Yeah.
ripple effect, and it goes outward with our essence. Yes. And thank you all for staying with us today and learning a little bit more about co-creating with community. And please give us some comments on this. Let us know what you liked, Let us know if you have any questions. And also, I want to hear how you are co-creating community within you or in your life. Yeah. And please, as we are expanding here and creating community, hit subscribe, so that way you're putting your attention on your intention of continuing to work from the inside out. Until the, until next time, my friends, be well.